Hello, everyone. Good to start. Um, Thank you all for attending. I would like to welcome you all to our season 2 of Loops, a webinar. Loops is a live webinar series that focuses on highlighting the innovation produced by Horizon 2020 funded projects in the field of social innovation and circular economy. I am Robert Brockin, I'm a communications assistant at Felta, and the topic we will discuss today is critical raw materials. To help us with this discussion, we have invited from RECOPPs project, Dr. Córdoba Sola, and from the SEArcularMINE project, Dr. Cipollina. Thank you all for attending. To start off the webinar, I'd like to welcome the guest to give himself an introduction.
Thank you, Robert. Shall I start sharing my screen?
No, just an introduction about yourself.
Okay.
Who you are.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Andrea Cipollina. I'm a professor of chemical engineering at the University of Palermo, located in Sicily, south of Italy. And my experience ranges from, research experience ranges from desalination technologies, either thermal and membrane technologies, salinity gradient power technologies, and in the last 5 years, our research group has focused significantly on the valorization of brine coming from industrial processes or even from natural brines for the recovery of energy by means of reverse electrodialysis technologies, or for the recovery of minerals through multiple different approaches, all of them integrated in circular schemes. Among these, the circular mine concept that I will present in a while.
Perfect. Thank you. Samantha, would you like? Oh, yeah. Patricia, sir, would you like to?
Okay, now it's my turn. My name is Patricia Córdoba. I am a postdoctoral researcher at IDAIA-CSIC, the Institute of Environmental Assessment and Water Research, and I do work in the industrial pollution research field. During the last year, I have been much more focused on power generation processes based on coal combustion, coal gasification, related to determining the industrial emissions from these processes. And I have also been working on the valorization of residues, mostly from these processes from coal power generation. And during the last 2 years, I have been much more focused on studying the different ways to reuse the residues and byproduct generated during the copper primary production, which is basically our RECOPPs upscaling. We are working on recovering added value raw materials from the residues generated during the copper primary production. And that's what I'm going to explain to you today.
Perfect. Thank you. Just to give the audience more details, so the webinar will consist of a presentation from both the projects, and at the end we'll have a short Q&A. So if you'd like to ask a question, go ahead in the YouTube chat or on the LinkedIn event page chat. So perfect. We'll make a start. Dr. Cipollina, if you would like to share your screen. I think your mic is off, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so saying thank you very much, Robert, for inviting me to present our recent project called SEArcularMINE, whose full title is a bit longer. It's Circular Processing of Seawater Brines from Saltworks for Recovery of Valuable Raw Materials. And I would start exactly from the main idea behind this project. A project which starts and is based on the ancient and widely used process of saltworks. You may know that saltworks are places where, by means of very large evaporating basins, seawater is evaporated in order to precipitate sea salt, sodium chloride, basically. But what you may not know is that at the end of the salt production process, there is a very concentrated brine called bitter, which still contains a huge amount of valuable trace elements. The project so develops from this idea and aims at developing several different technologies for the recovery of many of the trace elements available in the bitterns, most of them present in the list of the critical raw materials. And this will be done through a circular process of the bitter in a scheme that I will show you in a while. But first, let's give you some main facts about the project. It's a project funded by European Commission within the Horizon 2020 program, and it is a research and innovation action, so we work at relatively low TRL, aiming at reaching TRL about 5-6 at the end of the project. Project budget of 6 million, duration of 4 years, and the coordinator of the project is the University of Palermo. But we also have a very scientifically and technologically rich consortium constituted by 12 partners distributed all around Europe, but also including some North African partners. And it's worth mentioning that we also have in our consortium 5 companies. So there is a very important industrial driver for the activities we are carrying out. So what is the circular concept idea behind the project? We start, as I said, from a minerals-rich bitter, a brine, which is produced in evaporation saltworks. Can you see also the laser in my screen? I guess so. So with this brine, we treat it by means of a number of processes which are positioned in series, in line, in order to recover first magnesium, then lithium, and then other trace elements such as rubidium, strontium, cesium, and so on. What is very interesting about this project is also that we want to completely close the loop by an in situ generation of reactants, which are used for the selective separation processes I mentioned before. And finally, with the remaining brine, we feed a salinity gradient power unit, namely a reverse electrodialysis unit, which is able to generate electricity from the salinity gradient itself. Last but not least, what we want to do is also to analyze an upwind integration of existing saltworks by adding a desalination plant, which would provide fresh water on one side, and on the other side, a concentrated brine that can be used to feed the saltworks, thus enhancing the productivity of the saltworks itself. This concept has been patented a couple of years ago by the company Resources, which is one of the main partners of the consortium. And I want to give you some more details on the 3 core technologies that will be developed. The first one is the magnesium crystals granulometry controlled reactor. And it is a technology aiming at the recovery of magnesium from the exhausted brines from saltworks by a reactive crystallization process. And the goal will be to produce high purity and crystals granulometry controlled magnesium hydroxide particles in order to meet the high targets required by the market. Second core technology is the lithium membrane flow capacity deionization. It is an electromembrane process using lithium selective ion exchange membranes. And the big innovation is also the use of carbon slurry flow electrodes, which will allow to obtain an energy efficient process and a selective process for lithium recovery. The third core technology will be the pH swing adsorption process used to recover trace elements, adopting very selective sorbent materials which are switchable by means of a variation of pH in order to allow for cyclic adsorption and desorption of trace elements. Besides that, we also work on several auxiliary technologies which will be needed in order to operate the 3 core ones. And in particular, we will have evaporative pre-concentrator crystallizer in order to pre-concentrate the brine before reaching the lithium and trace element separators. But we also have the post-concentrator based on forward osmosis or evaporative processes, which will be used in order to concentrate the trace elements after they are separated from the waste brine. Last but not least, 2 electromembrane processes. The first one is the electrodialysis with bipolar membranes, which will be used for in situ chemicals production. And the last one will be the reverse electrodialysis used for power generation from salinity gradients. But there will be also several non-technical objectives. Among these, the most important is the characterization and mapping of bittern availability in Europe and in the whole Mediterranean basin. For that reason, we are already collecting samples and information from existing saltworks all around the Mediterranean basin, but also in some sites located in the Atlantic Ocean. And this will be used to pave the way for further development, ensuring a wide adoption of the proposed technologies. Some info about the work plan, let's say the implementation of the project. The project is divided into 3 phases. We are still at the end of the first phase, which is focused on fundamental research via experiments and modeling all the technologies that we are developing. We will soon start the second phase, which is advanced research for component testing, modeling, and optimization. So in this second phase, all the technologies will be further developed, and based on the findings and on the models developed in the first phase, some first prototype units will be designed, constructed, and tested. And the last phase, the last year of the project, aims at integrating all the technologies developed and tested in the second phase in one single integrated prototype that will be installed at the premises of the University of Palermo and will operate with real bitterns taken from the saltworks located in the west coast of Sicily. Of course, in parallel to these technical activities, there will be also resource and environmental analysis of the potential implementation of our technology in real environments, resource assessments, and exploitation, dissemination, and communication activities. Expected impact, as already quite clear, they will deal with the Circular Economy Action Plan, Blue Growth, and many of the Sustainable Development Goals. And in particular, they will focus on the sustainable access to magnesium, lithium, and other trace elements within the European Union. And this will be done by creating a technology base for radical innovations, which will help unblocking substantial reserves of the unexploited and unexplored resources within European Union and in general within the Mediterranean basin. This will be an important alternative to the current extraction of finite global reserves of these raw materials. But what is very important is also that our technologies will eliminate any requirement for external chemicals. So this will bring to a further step towards sustainability and energy, environmental, and raw materials recovery sustainability. And last but not least, the project also aims at mitigating freshwater scarcities in the areas where saltworks are located, which are typically suffering by severe water scarcity problems. So in one word, we aim at harnessing our seas as a sustainable mineral resource, creating a circular approach to mineral extraction. And that's the end of my presentation. I would like to thank you again, and for sure I'll be happy to answer any question.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you. Some very exciting work going on over in your project. Yes, Dr. Córdoba, if you would like to share your screen and begin your presentation.
Yeah, I'm doing it now. Okay. Okay. Okay, so thank you first for having me here today. As I said before, my name is Patricia Córdoba. I am a postdoctoral researcher at IDEA-FESIC, and I am the PI and project coordinator of RECOPPs at Scaling. So when I was thinking about this presentation today, I was questioning myself if I should start explaining directly about RECOPPs at Scaling, or if I should first explaining about the research that led us to RECOPPs at Scaling. And that's what I'm going to do. And for that, I do have to go back in time. I do have to go back to 2019 when I first contacted to Atlantic Copper. Atlantic Copper is a company dedicated to the treatment of copper concentrates and its transformation into a high copper quality. So when I first contacted them, my objective was first to better understand the process they did have in there, the pyrometallurgical process they used to produce copper, and also the operating conditions under which this smelter plant was working at that specific moment. So then with that information in hand, what I wanted to do, along with the staff of this plant that is located in Huelva in Spain, is to analyze and determine the residues and byproducts generated during the whole process, but not just the ones considered as a byproduct and or as a residue, but also the ones that could either be recirculated to the smelter or to the conveyor or to any other stage of the process. So for that, what I did was to propose an investigation, which consisted of the identification of the residues and byproducts generated during the pyrometallurgical process at this facility. And we followed with a sampling campaign that was performed during 2018 as well at this facility. As I said before, is located in Huelva, Spain. And I did finish with a characterization inventory at IDEA-FESIC, in where I did determine the composition, the properties, and the hazardous content of a group of residues and byproducts. So these were the ceramic filter dust, the ESP converter dust, the neutralization cake, the commercial grade Egyptian, and the L8. So once I went through the characterization inventory, I decided to work with just two of them because we did realize that they were the ones worth working with to pursue the recovery of added value raw materials, bismuth, and antimony. So based on the results I did get from this preliminary research, and also, and very important to say, the amount of these two residues generated during that period, during 2019, I did estimate that approximately, that was an estimation, that around 177 of tons of bismuth could have been generated during that period. Around 134 tons of antimony could have also been generated. And our challenge, around 1,000 tons of arsenic, of the hazardous arsenic, could have also been generated. So with all that information I had in hand, the next step for me to do was to design an action plan. That was what I did, which I did divide into two phases. Phase one was focused on delivering proof of an environmental and economical recovery protocol of these two added value raw materials from these two different residues generated during the copper primary production at a minimum technology readiness level of 5, to claim later in phase 2 the intellectual property of these two recovery protocols and transition them to a higher technology readiness level, that is between 7 and 8. So phase 1 was our RECOPP fast track that was funded by the EIT raw materials, within the framework of Horizon 2020. And in here, in addition to working with Atlantic Copper, our industrial partner, I did also have the collaboration of Universidad Politécnica de Catalunya. So we both work on these two recovery protocols, and from this project, we could protect the results that later we were going to exploit as international patents. Phase 2 is our RECOPPs upscaling that's being funded by the EIT raw materials within the framework of Horizon 2020. And in here, in addition to Atlantic Copper and Universidad Politécnica de Catalunya, I do also have the collaboration of the Institute of Non-Ferrous Metal from Poland, L2 Business, our commercializing partner for Sweden, and EURECAT also from Catalonia. So now that I have explained to you which are the institutions involved in this project, I'm going to put faces to the ones that are currently working behind these institutions. So from CSA side, we do have Samantha Rojas, our community communication and dissemination officer. From L2 Business, we do have Martin Galden and Sandra Udeskar. From Atlantic Copper, our industrial partner, we do have Alberto Mejia and Irene Ruiz. From Universidad Politécnica de Catalunya, we do have José Luis Cortina and his team. From the Institute of Non-Ferrous Metal, we do have Ms. Aldroasca. And last but not least, we do have from EURECAT, José Jorge Espí and Nuria Hernandez. So we are all working together on RECOPPs upscaling. That was divided into 6 work packages. Work package 0 is our go-to-market strategy, led by L2 Business. But in here, I have to say that my colleague Samantha and I are working on that part as well. Work package 1, project management, led by CSIC. Work package 2, process demonstration on a technology readiness level of 5, led by CSIC with the collaboration of UPC. Work package 3, industrial demonstration and validation technology, led by the Institute of Non-Ferrous Metal. But in here again, we do work all together on this work package. Work package 4, transferability and implementation, led by EURECAT. Again, the same. In here, we do collaborate all together. Work package 5, educational training, led by UPC. And work package 6, communication and dissemination, led by CSIC. In this case, it is Samantha Rojas, the one in charge of this work package. So apart from the technological solution we are working on, we do also have a very strong commitment with the European Commission, with the European Union, because we do believe that we can create a sustainable source of added value raw materials, bismuth and antimony. We can also this way protect the environment by treating hazardous elements that can damage the environment. We can definitely then create a revenue stream based on circularity of resources. And the last point, that's very important, and I do always say it every time I can, RECOPP is really, really committed and devoted to creating a space equal for everybody. We do have 0 tolerance for any kind of discrimination. And again, we do take this very, very, very seriously. So apart from it, we do also, we are very, very committed to the United Nations sustainability goals. Among the ones you can see on your screen, we really contribute to the sustainability goal, gender equality. So from our total staff, 57 of them are identified as women, while 43 of them are identified as men. We do also contribute to clean water and sanitation by avoiding discharge of hazardous elements in the water during a industrial process. We do also contribute to the sustainability goal, industry, innovation, and infrastructure by increasing environmental cost efficiency for the industry. We do also contribute to the responsible consumption and production by increasing circularity of resources. And we do also contribute to the sustainability goal, climate action, by reducing the amount of waste and land filling. So as I've been saying during this presentation, RECOPPs is a very young project. We are at early stages, but we are very committed. We do want to be relevant for the industry as a solution that will help save costs of waste management and reduce the environmental impact of industrial activities. And we do also want to be relevant for the European Union community. But we do want to be an example, educating on new ways of generating revenue and encouraging next generation like yours to keep investigating and innovating towards a greener future with opportunities for everybody. So if you would like to know more about us, please join us during our annual workshop, which will be held by the end of this year. We haven't decided when exactly when this is going to be, but we will make it public in mid-November. And yeah, please feel free to join us anytime. And if you are more interested in us, and here you have our social media platforms through where you can follow everything related to the project. And you can also send me an email if you have any questions. If you would like to suggest whatever thing, we are in here more than happy to answer any questions you may have. And before I finish, I would like to thank my partners, Atlantic Copper, Universidad Politécnica de Cataluña, L2 Business, the Institute of Non-Ferrous Metal, and URECAT. Thanks again for having me here today. And I'm here now to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was very interesting. It's very interesting to see how many sustainable goals your project actually partakes in. Yeah, so if anyone has a question, they can ask ahead either in the YouTube chat or on the LinkedIn event page. I'd like to thank you again for your fascinating presentations. I'd like to ask a question just to kick off the Q&A. So both your projects, though you have your own area of recovery, you have some similarities. Is there any question you'd like to ask each other? Any curiosity about each project?
Yeah, maybe I start asking Patricia and Samantha if they can give some more details on the technologies that they are planning to develop for the recovery of these three elements. I'm just curious to know. The microphone, Patricia.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. We are working on two recovery protocols of this added value raw material from two residue generating during the copper primary production. And I'm not going to explain the technology itself because that's something that we are going to share with everyone during our annual workshop. And you are invited to join us, and then you can have all the details related to the technology we are working. Because right now we are on our way to protect them as international patents. So They are not protected yet. So we are on our way, and that's the main reason why. But by the end of this year, hopefully, we will have these recovery protocols already as international patents. So then we can share with you all the details you may want to know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Maybe I'll ask another question,
but go ahead.
Can answer. I'm also curious to know in which form these elements will be recovered. Will they be recovered in the metal form or as inorganic salts or minerals?
No, bismuth is being recovered as bismuth oxychloride because it has a market in there, and that's the way we are going to recover bismuth. It could also be recovered as oxide, and in the case of antimony, it's being recovered as oxide as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Patricia, do you have a question for Andrea? Or?
Yeah, well, I was very interested in knowing how can be managed such a big project, and how are you are on a stage where you are, taking some samples, but your final technology readiness level would be 5, or do you think that you can transition that technology to a higher technology readiness level?
Yeah, that is a nice question. So first of all, let's say that we wanted to split the activities into 3 work packages, developing the three main, let's say, core technologies. So we have work package 3, 4, and 5, focused on magnesium, lithium, and trace element separation. And these 3 work packages are themselves like a small project led by a technology provider, which are the University of Palermo and resources in the case of magnesium recovery, IBET Research Center in Portugal, in Lisbon, for the lithium recovery, and UPC, the same group that you know very well, Professor Cortina and his team, for the pH swing adsorption for the recovery of trace elements. And yeah, the coordination aims at let's say, sharing or promoting the sharing of information between these 3 work packages and the other work packages, which instead aim at the analysis of the optimal integration of these processes among them, and also with the auxiliary technologies that will be used for pre and post concentration and crystallization of the trace elements and lithium after the selective recovery, and so on. And there will be then a single work package enclosing all modeling activities. So the work package itself, it is divided in several tasks, each task focused on one of the technologies developed. So it follows a structure which is a parallel structure with the project itself. And yeah, we are collecting samples, and in this phase, the samples collection is, let's say, aims mainly at the characterization of bitterns. And the bittern composition can be very different from site to site. So this is why it's fundamental for us to collect this kind of information in order to have, let's say, the basis to develop our technologies. But all the experimental activities so far carried out, and also those that will be carried out in the next year, will be done with synthetic solutions, not with real ones. The real solutions will be used only in the final year of the project. And the TRL we aim to achieve is, as you said, 4, 5, 6. It will not be the same for all technologies. So probably the magnesium recovery technology has already a higher TRL, and we aim at a full-scale pilot demonstration with real brines. We may also end up testing it in a real environment, but this is something that could be done just at the very end of the project. While the lithium and trace element selective recovery are technologies at lower TRL, so we basically aim at having them operating at the laboratory scale, small pilot scale, with real brines, but in our laboratories.
So, so then, in the end, could it have an industrial application vision, or?
Yeah. This is the mission of Resources, which is a spin-off company of the University of Palermo, which aims at the industrial implementation of the concept of magnesium hydroxide recovery from saltworks bitterns. So this is why we hope within the project we will be able to better develop the technology, aiming at a pilot reactor able to fully control purity and granulometry of particles, so that we can, soon after the project, try to scale up and enter into the market.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I just have another question for both projects. I'm just kind of curious. I know both your projects are still like in the early phase, but have you ran into any challenges during your project, either from like a technology standpoint or any other aspect?
Well, in our case, as I said, we are at very early stages. The good thing is that we did have a prior project in where we were working on the 2 recovery protocols. We could get the technology readiness level that we needed to apply for the upscaling project. So that was very, very challenging for us because it was done in just few months. Although I have to say that we have been working on these residues for longer, but I have to say that we are at very, very early stages. The complications will be when we are going to transition our recovery protocols to a technology readiness level of 7.5. That is the upscaling process. It's been also very, very difficult to work on arsenic stabilization because it is involved on the chemistry of both bismuth and antimony. And these are probably the biggest challenges at this specific moment. As I said, we are at very, very early stages of the project. So if you ask me probably in a few months, I will tell you many others.
Yes. This is a research project, so if we hadn't problems, it wouldn't be research. But on the other side, I must say that we are perfectly on time with the work plan, with the deliverables, and we have achieved all the fixed milestones for the first period, apart from one, which is about the construction of a real environment laboratory, which is a place where performing an in-situ characterization of bitterns to be constructed within the saltworks of Trapani. But this was not a technological problem. It was a bureaucratic problem because the permits request procedures started more than 1 year ago, and we are just now receiving the full permission. So the construction works will start now, and hopefully will finish by November or end of December. So that will be also met as a milestone. And yeah, also I'm happy to say that also many key performance indicators that we have fixed for the development of these technologies were also met. Not all of them, of course, because in some cases we still need some time to further developing the technologies, the materials, or optimize the processes. But several of them have already been met. So we are quite happy about how things are progressing.
Yeah, thanks for the answers. It's very interesting. It'd be interesting to see where your projects are like in the future, if there's any other challenges or accomplishments. I have another, just have a question for SEArcularMINE. I see that your project builds on the aging process of saltworks. How did you discover this process? Like, what was the discovery of it? It's just very interesting.
Yeah,
Like,
the discovery, well, let's say the seed for this idea dates back to maybe 15 years ago, when we started analyzing the potential for integration of desalination processes with saltworks. And in particular, in Trapani, there used to be a quite big desalination plant based on an evaporative technology called multiple effect distillation. And we had a small project in collaboration with SOSALT, which is one of the partners of the SEArcularMINE project. At that time, it was just a company operating the saltworks. And that small project aimed at analyzing the effect of using a desalination brine to feed a small experimental saltworks. And during that study, we have found, the main goal was at the time to analyze the salt quality and the operation of the saltworks. And that was successful because we indeed observed in 4 years of experimental campaigns that the salt quality was still very high. The environmental aspects were not changed by the change in the feed solution. there were some concerns about the life within the saltworks. But the other point, and the productivity was actually increased by 20-30% just by changing the type of feed. So it was a good result, a very good result for the company operating the saltworks. But during those years, we had to analyze let's say, the composition of the process streams, starting from the inlet seawater or brine and going until the very end of the process where we get the bittern. And we realized that this bittern is actually a real mine because it still contains a huge amount of many elements that cannot be recovered in a traditional way because they would be recovered in a mixer of salts that have no commercial value. But we have started developing some technologies, first for the recovery of magnesium in the form of magnesium hydroxide, and then all the other ideas came also with the contribution of our project partners. And it's worth mentioning also another EU project that ran for 4 years from 2010 to 2014, if I'm not wrong, or maybe a bit later. Anyway, this is the Repower project, aiming at the valorization of this bittern, but by means of energy recovery. So in that project, we developed and installed and operated for several months a reverse electrodialysis pilot unit producing almost 1 kilowatt power, electrical power, by the controlled mixing of bitterns from a real saltworks and fresh water or brackish water from an underground well. So that was another very important achievement related to the valorization of brines. It was an energetic valorization in that case, but it was also very useful to build a background for our SEArcularMINE project.
Yeah, thanks for that, Andrea. That's so interesting. Just to remind the audience watching, if you would like to ask a question, go ahead in the YouTube chat or on the event page chat, and we'll answer your questions. I just have a question for RECOPPs. I saw you talked about your workshop, which I also saw in July you held educational activities with a training course.
What?
Do you plan on having more of these educational activities? And
Okay.
yeah, during this the educational activity, did you witness a high degree of interest among these students?
So we did have, as I said, we did start our project in April due to the pandemic situation we did have, everyone. And we did have our first training course that was in July. So this training course was an opportunity for us to introduce ourselves. And it was a recompilation of different talks about different researchers from different speakers. And it was an opportunity for the students to learn what we do in RECOPPs upscaling and the kind of education we do want them to have following RECOPPs upscaling. We are planning to have a second training course, and it will be probably in November. We are still planning how this is going to be, and it will be led by Universidad Politécnica de Cataluña, José Luis Cortina and his team, and we will probably make it public in the next few weeks, and we will have another kind of activities related to it, the IT women, by the end of this month. And we are planning continually many activities. Next month in November, we will have like 4 events. So in here, all of our student community are more they're welcome to join us. And as I said, we are on our way to introduce first ourselves, because this is a very new project. So our objective in here is to, for example, explain to students the reason why RECOPPs is this important for the European community, for the industry sector, especially of the copper. And also we do want to, let's say, implement different training course on circularity of resources. So it will be probably next month, the one we do have like 4 events.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. We hope I'll be looking out for it. It's good to see that there's engagement in the area of like circularity and I just have just another question for SEArcularMINE, Andrea. I saw that your objectives is to pave the way for further development, ensuring a wide adoption and acceptance. I was wondering, since your project commenced, have you witnessed such development in these areas, like support for your process and objectives? Like from
Sorry,
the
Robert,
public
can you
or...
repeat the last part of the question? Since your project?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, since your project commenced, have you witnessed such development in areas such as like support for the process or your objectives?
I don't get the question, sorry.
Oh no, sorry. I just I mean, like, you want to pave a way for further development.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was just wondering, has this has there been like an acceptance of this? Have people showed engagement and
Okay.
support?
Sorry.
Yes, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, this is part of the activities that we are carrying out within the project. So there is a work package dedicated on the exploring and investigating the potential for implementation, in which we are collecting data, we are collecting brine samples, but also we are building a network of companies that operate in existing saltworks, which are filling questionnaires useful to collect precious information for the future development. But we have also discussed it with them about exactly as you say, the acceptance and the potential they see on the implementation. And we got, I would say, positive reply from most of them, because many of them would be quite interested in analyzing the possibility of implementing this technology. And of course, there are differences from site to site. In some cases, it could be more complicated due to the fact that this bitter can be also used for, let's say, touristic reasons. There are some saltworks, normally small ones, where these saturated bitterns are used to create thermal baths, some sort of thermal baths. So for, let's say, healthy or healing activities. But in some other cases, this bittern is really discharged back to the sea, or considered as a waste. So in all these cases, they have a large interest in knowing more about the technology and in the potential of implementation. But of course, we are still in an early phase. But this type of analysis is actually included within the activities of the project.
Oh, perfect. It's very interesting. As you say, both your projects are still in the early phase, so it'd be very exciting to see what continues and what grows. If there's no questions from the audience at the moment, I would just wrap the webinar up, and I would like to thank Dr. Córdoba, Sola, and Dr. Cipollina for attending and showing their fantastic work that the projects are doing. And I'd like to thank everyone for attending the webinar. And just to inform everyone that our next webinar will take place on the 5th of November. The episode will be about the sustainable future of mining. We have invited the Horizon 2020 projects, RoboMiners and Diga, to help us in that discussion. So hope to see you all there. And again, thank you all for attending.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert,
Thank
for
you.
inviting. And
Thank you.
bye-bye. Bye-bye, Patricia and Samantha.
Bye.
Good day.